Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing live show number 207, simulcasted around the world to currently over 28 countries and over 10,000 people that follow us each week. Thank you so very much for that attendance and that followership. With me is no one yet. I am Lauren Gray, your singular host at this particular moment, waiting for my other co-host to hopefully join me as time goes on, where every week we bring you the most relevant information associated with hospitality marketing, both news, tools, and techniques that can affect your business and help your business grow. With that, I have a well-curated list from one of our co-hosts, Mr. Robert Cole, who every week diligently and tirelessly produces a list of topics that are timely, informative, and helpful, and mostly news. And then we get off into divergent angles of discussion from all of those. Copied on that list every week in support of HSMAI and its multiple facets of support for hospitality, Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International, is the marketing board, which receives our list as well. And we are always open to an open invitation to any of them to join us, as well as any of you that would like to come join our live show. To join the live show itself, other than watching it simulcasted on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube, simply go to bit.ly/HDM show 207. You can see a pattern there because each show will be incremental from that point on. So this week's show obviously will be 208. Speaking of which, we are just a couple of weeks shy of our 5th year anniversary. We have been doing this every week, coming to you live for now what will be soon 5 years. So we are well into the space, we are well into the program, and well into the topics and content. If you would like to get this show and all previous shows, either the recorded broadcast as it comes back to you, it is simulcasted on HSMAI's APAC, it's Asian Pacific region's social platforms, and it is rescheduled for Monday at 11 o'clock Sydney time. It makes it a little more convenient for the airspace there. And then for the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International EU region, is broadcasted on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. London time. So those are our concurrent times that we go over and broadcast the rebroadcast of this show. Mr. Edward St. Ange from Flip2, how are you, sir?
Lauren Gray, I apologize for my tardiness.
No. Give me a chance to elaborate and enumerate on our massive successes of perpetual broadcasting.
It's amazing. If you throw enough spaghetti at the wall, eventually some of it
stick
sticks.
at it. I noticed that Mr. Robert Cole, in his diligence of putting together the topics, also wanted to share his thought process as to how we run our show with a wonderful little graphic.
Right, because why would we ever treat our professional emails any different than our internal personal emails?
Why be different than who you are, right? And besides that, we follow what the web does for people. See, everyone thinks the web is a linear process. I look for the next thing. I look for the next thing. No, it's squirrel.
Nope.
It's a blob that surrounds you. You start looking for a room.
YouTube's average session time is proof of that.
Exactly true. Well, I've actually been enjoying our conversations over the course of the week, and after this show, I have to tell you even more enumerations that I came up with afterwards. Things I started diving into. But with that said, I got to show a new toy. Just before we start our talk, look at this bad boy. Ooh.
Is it a thermos?
Almost. It is a portable, battery-operated espresso maker. I can see you're excited. I can see the excitement in your eyes. You simply put the water in the top.
Okay.
You put the Nespresso canister here.
Oh, so Nespresso.
Yeah, well, the same kind of cartridge of it. And then you hit the button, batteries in the back. Give it a few minutes, and ta-da, coffee.
That's pretty cool.
Well, and this goes to the variations of my travel experiences. Coffee's important to me. Unfortunately, most hotels don't find that to be the same value proposition. They've decided to potentially, at times, require you to go all the way down to their lobby at a time that I don't want to see anybody, nor do I feel dressed to see anybody, nor do I even want to travel outside of my room to see anybody, to get a cup of coffee. Put the machine in my room. So,
and speaking of grumpy people who don't want to see people,
like me, I'm not a very talkative person.
Tim Peter, ladies and gentlemen.
Tim Peter Associates, how are you, sir?
I am spectacular. How are you all today?
Good. I was showing off my new toy.
What are we looking at?
This is a battery-powered portable espresso maker.
Fantastic.
Tim had the same response I did.
I love the look. I love the look. Please watch the show and see Tim's look when he sees how happy he is that I have a portable espresso maker.
Oh, Tim, this is why you and I are just good on this show together.
I had to bring that to the table. I had to just.
You had the same response I did.
Ed,
okay.
Yeah, Ed was a little bit more pensive. Ed was at least a little like, You were flat up, straight up. What the hell? Yeah, it's the same look my wife gave me. But it was, of course, a flash deal sale that I've been chasing for months on Amazon, and it finally popped up. And I was like, you know what? Gonna get it because
I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm getting Tim for Christmas.
Whoa, yes.
I think I've had in the last 10 years, I think I have had precisely 2 cups of coffee.
Oh, that's right. You're not the coffee person. You're right.
I'm not a coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. I take my caffeine in an entirely different form, and most of the time,
it's heroin.
most of the time, I don't even drink caffeine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because caffeine on top of meth is not.
Well, that's just it.
It's a tough combo. It's a tough combo. It's a rough ride.
Exactly.
Oh, Mr. Tim,
I find it takes away the effect of the Percocet.
Right.
Oh yeah, and then you got to balance it out with the ludes, and it just goes back and forth. It's like a ping pong.
So Tim, you appear not to be in your home office.
So I am in a temporary home office. I'm in a different part of the home. So this is the home.
Okay. We thought maybe you were traveling somewhere interesting, or
no. This is what we refer to in the house as the loft. It's where my kids used to live. The upstairs part of the house. My older daughter is moving apartments in a few weeks. But there is sort of an overlap between when she can move into the new apartment, when she had to be out of the old apartment. And so she is living in our basement where my office is. And in particular, she's doing that because she brought her cats with her, and we don't want to introduce her cats to our cats. So we have the whole basement door closed and all that kind of stuff.
Got to keep them separated.
Got to keep them separated. So I could go in my office. We keep my office door closed so the cats don't go in. But then I would be sitting in a room all day with the door closed, and I didn't like that. So I moved to
the loft.
The loft, which
airy open loft versus
right, exactly. Which up until now, we just assumed our cleaning lady has been running this part of the house as an Airbnb, because I think that's the first time I've been upstairs in the last year and a half for any length of time.
That's cool. Hey, I like the burly Tim. I like the burly look Tim. I like the scruffy Tim. It's a good
look.
Yeah.
I need a little.
How long's Tammy gonna put up with that?
I don't know.
This is an exercise in patience for my wife as well. She's like, I'll shave it for you. Really, it's okay.
And Ed, so what this is called is a beard. If you're able to grow facial hair when you become a man,
I would take some offense to that if this wasn't from shaving like Sunday. So fair enough.
For what it's worth, Ed, I had the same problem for many, many, many years. I was. This is literally like 30 years of growth right here.
Yeah,
this is Mountain Man Tim right now. So.
I think I go through like 2 razors a year.
And Mr. Robert Cole's joining us now as well, the master of ceremonies when it comes to the topics. I actually took time. I had Renee's traveling right now. She's in Denver right now, and she's Mr. Robert Cole. Rachita, how are you, sir?
Robert.
Hello, Robert. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Boy, if I don't show up near the top of the show, you guys divert to what? An espresso machine reviews and talking about family pets.
Brought by Wiyula coffee machines.
I apologize for being late. Damn clients.
It's all, well, actually, let's be honest. It's all these concerts Robert's going to now.
Good God.
I'm going to another one tonight. Another one tonight.
I want to see Queen. Yep.
I really enjoyed the llama Queen shirt. That was a good shirt.
You know, if you listen to the lyrics, the original lyrics were "Llama just killed a man." So that's
right. I think they covered that in Bohemian Rhapsody.
It was.
Movie.
That's all right. It is surprising. Even to this day, I'll be singing a song and either a friend or Renee will go over and say, "I'm sorry, what was that word you just said?" And I'll say it, and she's like, "That's not the lyric." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And then we look it up. No, it's not. Holy crack!
Like Jimi
Sadly,
Hendrix. Yeah, Jimi Hendrix. Excuse me while I kiss this guy. Yeah.
which is actually what he says on the record. So this is a great little bit of trivia. The lyric as written is "Excuse me while I kiss the sky."
Right.
However, Hendrix had a tendency to be playful when he was performing the song live, and so actually on the record he literally does sing "Kiss this guy." So the lyric as written is "Kiss
That's
the
right.
sky." But on the record, it's understandable why people think it sounds like "kiss this guy," and the answer is because it does.
Actually,
That is a completely true story, by the way.
for Tim, are you familiar with Charlie Hunter, the guitarist?
Yeah.
I saw him last night. He was very good. I'd never seen him before.
Guy can play a little bit.
The guy can play. He plays the bass line. I didn't really talk to him about his setup, but he has two leads plugged into the guitar, so he's got it set up where he has kind of a more of a bass amp and a treble amp, and he was only playing a 6-string last night. He does play I think an 8 or 9 or something.
An 8 is most common thing.
I think he plays a 7/8. But yeah, he plays the bass line with his thumb.
Yeah, he wraps the thumb over the.
And it's not just kind of hitting one note. You're sitting
no.
there going, how the hell is he doing that? But
So-
I guess if you're saving money on a bass player, you're driven to really practice a lot. I don't know.
So speaking as a guy who's played guitar for 37 years or something like that, to do what he does, first of all, it takes a lot of talent. It takes a lot of skill. I don't want to minimize that. It also takes extraordinarily large hands. Like to be able to wrap your thumb over the top and do that on an 8-string neck is actually, you do not have a normal human-sized hand.
Speaking of a man with large hands, here comes Stuart Butler.
and hey, you know what they say about men with large hands, right?
Large
gloves. That's exactly right.
I always thought Stuart's nickname was T-Rex. I didn't know why.
Well, that's only at restaurants. Oh, let me get that.
All right, we should probably talk.
Welcome,
about
Stuart Butler, Fuel Travel.
Anyway,
Hey, guys.
quick note. Highly recommend Charlie Hunter with Lucy Woodward, who's a singer, doing really interesting stuff. Yeah, and we'll be touring all over the place. So anyway.
Well, with that in mind, gentlemen, shall we?
So it sounds like I didn't miss anything, right?
Realization
You-
we have
you-
not
oh,
missed
Wait.
anything.
Oh,
Let's
God.
see what Stuart says.
Show him-
Go ahead,
Show him
Lauren.
the coffee cup, Lauren.
Oh, Stuart, look, new toy.
When did you get that? That's awesome.
See, thank you, Stuart.
That's
He
just
must
the
be-
English in him. He's
Stuart
polite.
doesn't know what it is and doesn't really care.
Yes,
But that
Stuart's
is the
my friend,
perfect
so he'll always be
polite
surprised.
English.
It's a bomb, right? Is that not what it is?
This
It's
is
a
a
pipe bomb.
battery-operated portable espresso machine.
That's pretty cool. I like gadgets
All
too,
right.
Lauren.
All right, see, but hold on. You heard the drop in enthusiasm in that response. So
I'm saying no, it's not a bomb. Yeah, it's not quite.
Yeah,
It's
it's not a
thermonuclear
bomb,
device. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Anyway. So, Robert, since you made the list, which one do you want to pull out of the hat?
Oh, I thought we were going to talk about the concert I was going to go see tonight. Oh, okay. I'm
No,
sorry.
no.
Let me look at
I do want to make sure we hit the Metasearch one since Tim is on here, and Tim is not a fan of that article, I'm sure, because it is contrary to what he says happening.
Well,
Yeah, I want to definitely
No,
get on
it's
that
not.
one as
No,
well.
it's not. It's not at all. By the way, but we'll get to that.
No,
Robert,
okay,
go ahead.
good, okay. And there's no
fire
I'm
review.
going to rant on one of them too. I actually read the articles this week, which is
Oh,
rare for
So
me.
did I.
But,
I'm ready to go, man. I got this stuff down.
yeah, me too.
so I have
I read them.
opinions on a few of them. For sure.
I'll have
Somebody-
opinions
somebody
after
throw
I
out
hear
a-
yours.
All right, Robert, pull one out of the hat. Go ahead.
Oh,
Pick one.
since you guys read them, I think that's normally why I introduce them, because you guys haven't read them. So my intro gives you enough time to
All
scan.
right, so
it.
let's be nice to Tim and bring up the top story because Wyndham fares well. and he has a slightly tight relationship with Wyndham in a strange way. So we can hit the top story one.
I'd like to be very clear. There's nothing strange about my relationship.
Well, it's strange that Tammy's with you. That's the
Yeah,
strange
our relationship with Wyndham is
wait. To be fair, it's strange to us.
Around for 25 years, right?
Right,
Exactly.
that's what's
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah, that's what's
that
strange.
I agree.
That's the strange part. Is that
I'll grant you that. That I agree with you completely.
Yeah, so
At least
full,
he-
full
he-
disclosure. Full disclosure, I am contracted with JD Power. I'm going to be running around talking to all these hotel groups about these results in the over the next couple of months. Yeah, so and unfortunately, we can't do a nice drill down into the tool and really look at specific results on each item,
I think-
which is very interesting.
I think what's interesting is, so for luxury, wasn't overly surprised. Upscale, I was surprised.
I was
Hard
surprised.
Rock. Upscale,
Yep.
Best Western Premier. If that is not a brand who has pulled it together
Yeah.
and moved
Right.
successfully upwards, I mean, this is the epitome of the work they've put in.
And they've been putting a lot. I mean, rebranding, reflagging, re-logoing,
But this is more than that. Like,
Right.
I mean,
No, it
this
is. It is. I'm just saying they've done a lot.
This is improving the service across the board.
right.
Oh yeah.
Drury Hotels, not surprised. But I mean, then again, it's easy when you own and manage every single property.
Absolutely.
Like, consistency is pretty easy to deploy
Right.
when it's
Right.
all one company.
Well, and it's also easier
right,
when you
and-
don't have that many properties too.
Drury's pretty big. I mean,
Yeah, but in general, like
yeah.
if you're, scale is going to have a factor because
course.
it's an average and
Wingate is impressive because Tim, is Wingate one of the models where it's more of a membership than a franchise, or is Wingate one of the franchises?
Oh no! So far as I'm aware, and full disclosure, I think everybody on the show knows. I know you all know this, but for everybody watching the show, my wife works at Wyndham. I used to work at Wyndham. I know the company relatively well. I'm also a Wyndham shareholder, so I obviously have some vested interest in this one on a lot of levels. To the best of my knowledge, I don't believe Wyndham has any properties that are not franchised. I think they own like 2 or 3 properties. There's a very, very small ownership portion, but when you're talking 9,000 hotels, whatever the number is, it's not material. And they manage a bunch of hotels, but again, it's the management company. I think is only a couple hundred hotels out of the 9,000.
They're all brand and franchise now. They're not like Knights Inn where it was more of a membership.
Even Knights Inn at the time when I worked there was franchised.
Okay.
They sold off the brand 4 or 5 years ago.
Right. Okay.
But no, I don't believe, with the exception of a couple of owned properties, I don't think there's anything that is not franchised or soft brand. Right.
Right.
But Microtel
Microtel's and it's a great product, and it always has been.
Yeah. And Wingate was developed by Cendant, actually, by the predecessor to Wyndham, as a franchise property from the ground up.
Yep.
And this is their 5th consecutive win, or being named this. But Robert, you would know better than I would. This is their 5th consecutive year that they've been named number 1 in the mid-scale category. But it's also like their 12th out of the last 15 years or something like that. Like they consistently do very well in this category. It's a relatively small group within Wyndham, by which I mean, I think it might be 150 or 200 properties. Really don't quote me on that because I don't know. When I left the company 11 years ago, I think it was only about 100 properties, and it's probably twice that now, or maybe 250 or something like that. But it's relatively small out of a 9,000 property, group, right? And it always was great product and really, really good product. They do a nice job. Tends to focus heavily on business travelers, and I think they do a good job. I always look at these, if I can broaden this away from Wingate or the Wyndham pieces or things like that for a second. No. I mean, I think any of this stuff. I think when we talk about JD Power, I think when we talk about TripAdvisor reviews or any of that kind of stuff, what this speaks to is did you set an expectation and did you deliver on that expectation or over deliver the expectation? Right? When people give bad reviews or ding
Satisfaction
someplace,
level.
right. It's I thought I was going to get X and I got X or X plus. You're in great shape. I thought I was going to get X and I got X minus. You're always going to be in bad shape, regardless of where you are in chain scale terms and the like. And it speaks to these guys do a good job of fulfilling their brand promise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought one of the things
that's
that
really
was
the bottom line of it.
interesting is it said how important the good night's sleep was, which, you know,
Yeah.
in terms of overall satisfaction, which you think about initially, and I gave this some thought, and I was like, well, does the hotel really control that? And then I was thinking about, well, it's little things that can make a difference. You know, do they block light from the the windows during the night?
Soundproofing.
Is the air conditioning unit like really loud? You know, that's something that wakes me up a lot in
Yeah.
hotels. Is
all the
air
way
conditioning
down to the construction of the hotel. I mean, this
Right,
is
exactly.
why
So for new
this
builds,
is why you're
those
seeing
considerations.
something like Microtel, because they all start as new builds, at
Right.
least
Yeah.
from my recollection of Microtel.
Right.
So that
Last I
means-
knew they were all new builds. And Wingate,
Yeah, so-
by the way,
Yeah.
historically have been new builds. There are very few conversions in there.
right.
Right.
Yeah. So because of that, you can very much control a good night's sleep.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
even if you can't, right, even if you're in an old building that has a loud AC unit, they made the comment, little touches like earplugs or white noise machine or something like that in the room.
Battery operated
Can-
espresso machines.
Can make a difference. It's little touches that make a difference. But yeah. And then investing
Lauren-
in good linens, good mattress, stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I don't think Lauren heard that. So
Oh, I did. What I missed? I was looking at something.
he's making fun of you,
No
Lauren,
kidding.
that's all.
I was picking on
Again.
Oh,
In other
So what
words,
else is
it's
there?
Friday at 11:50 a.m.
Although I say that, but I have to give Lauren kudos. I was taking him through something new we're doing, and he gave me some insight that probably saved us a month, and then spurred a substantial improvement in product design. So
Yeah, and right after that conversation, Ed called
I
me
called
and said,
Stuart and
"You'll
was
never
so
guess what?
surprised.
Lauren just gave me a great idea."
even if
And I
I'm
was
taking
like,
fun
"No,
of turnip.
wow,
there's no way." I think he was verifying. He's like, either I'm going crazy or Lauren gave me a good idea. So
Right.
which
You know
is
what's-
it?
you
So
know
he
what's
wanted
strange
to
thing when I
litmus
start
test me.
there's a thin line there
Yeah.
separating
Yeah.
those two
I-
things.
If you can decipher the techno babble that comes out of Lauren's mouth when he gets excited and passionate about stuff and starts using these crazy words, then he sometimes has some good ideas.
Every once in a while.
What a tough room, man.
It's absolutely true. It is like
Hey.
okay,
So Lauren, you can get back at them by saying what the great idea was and just completely take it. Yeah.
no, not
Could
my
have-
story.
It actually doesn't matter. Like,
So,
we'll
you're
probably
going to
have
teach
it-
me, huh? Well,
We'll have it into iteration probably, if not next week, the week after. Because actually, it was a great idea that wasn't a huge lift. So it was one of those like really good ideas.
It's simple to execute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I started thinking about it more and more, and I kept talking about it more and more as I was thinking through how to apply it to something I'm trying to do. The one part I can talk about what I'm doing is I'm trying to gather data about cancellations, information data, and then use that to find risk windows and see how we can engage different channel contributions against the risk windows to mitigate down some of the cancellation potentialities.
Sure.
And how to engage them, that blending some of that idea stuff together. So that was a very simplistic, small potatoes compared to the conversations of what Flip2 and Fuel Travel are doing. So, but it was one of those things I was trying to chase down a little gopher.
Ah.
See,
So
Lauren
I think-
does AI, but instead of it being artificial, it's just actual intelligence.
Nice.
There you go.
Pencils and paper. Anyway,
So, so it sounds like the JD Power story has run out of gas.
it's run out of gas. It's a great
Yeah.
story for it.
I
mean,
can't
it's
say
good to-
I can't say that much about it. The underlying data is fascinating though. So especially and some of the ones that scored high really were Drury, it wasn't just that's good value and that skewed it or anything like that. A lot of these top performers were just right there very, very consistently, and you could see the ones that were lower just weren't
Did you see
didn't provide
anyone?
a consistency.
Did you see anyone drop significantly or rise significantly year over year?
Boy, there is one that is just off the charts low. And I don't think I can talk about it, unfortunately, because there should be another report that comes out with a little bit more detail. This is normally how the
JD
process
Power's
goes.
just waiting to see if that brand's willing to pay for a sponsorship to not deploy the bottom of the JD Power findings.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's with one of these, they normally do lay those out. But yeah, I think they just don't necessarily have it all. They basically do kind of this press release and webinar, and then there's like one or two follow-ups on a couple of different things. So I have actually a meeting with those guys in person next week, and we're going through all the stuff. So I'll know what I can talk about and what I can't.
Heaven forbid we scoop it on this show and the 7 listeners go ahead and spread the word to the whole industry.
Stuart, there's only 5 of us on the show today.
Sorry, 5 listeners.
Darlene's out there. 6.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
so
No, the one thing though, actually, the one thing to say for JD Power, they are very, very good in terms of their methodology, though, and that's the big thing. So when you start digging into these, they'll have all these rankings, but then they will actually have a cutoff of the sample size when they're drilling down into reservations or into a particular area. If they didn't get enough information on it, that stuff kind of gets, you can see the scores and the stuff gets kind of blacked out, and it's treated differently. So yeah, they are very, very good, and it is not gained. And their business model,
they've been
their
doing
business
it
model,
for a while, so you would hope that it was.
Yeah, this stuff is good, and doing it across different verticals and things like that.
It's expensive to take part in this, isn't it?
No, it's actually the study happens, period. Right.
Okay.
There's no investment. It doesn't matter if you pay to do it. The study goes. The business model of JD Power is, though, if you're scored number 1 and you win, and you want to use the little JD Power trophy logo and things like that, use the name and promote it, then you have to pay a licensing fee for it. And most of them want to do that. So yeah, and that's how they've done it in all the industries. So there's not really a situation where if you participate or not, you score well, you score back.
So are you saying all these emails I keep getting from folks every time I send a press release that says, hey, Fuel's just been nominated for the top 10 fastest growing or top 10 PPC agencies in the industry, and pay us and we'll print you something that says it?
Yeah.
You think I should pay that? Sounds really legit.
I do. I pick them up.
No, that's not really what JD Power does.
I keep getting named to the hospitality yearbook.
You did? Oh my God!
It only cost you how much?
That's crazy cool. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm on
No, they do spend a fortune doing this research. I mean, this is a large. It's 44. I think the sample size is like 44,000 or something like that. It's big. So
honestly, I've never questioned anything JD Power's done until recently when they appointed Robert Cole as a consultant.
I got to be honest with you.
Well, that is highly suspect.
My problem hasn't been with JD Power. It's been with how they allow the auto manufacturers to use very thin slivers of the JD Power assessment as like their key differentiation. So when you hear like Dodge, best in initial quality, like is initial quality like 1,000 miles? Because it's got to be.
Or initial.
Actually,
it's the new car smell. Does it smell really good when you open the door? That's the initial quality.
Yeah. So what you wind up doing with this, you wind up having, there's the overview, right? That's the overall score. But then they ask about reservations, arrival, departure, guest room, food and beverage, services and amenities, hotel facilities, costs and fees, problems, things like that, right? So you have all these guys. So if you wanted to, I suppose you wanted to say, hey, we were number 1 in costs and fees, whatever. Or arrival, number one in arrival, departure.
Number 1 in resort fees. There it is.
Yeah, every once in a while, people want to do that.
There's more and more states jumping on the bandwagon of challenging resort fees as being a breach of consumer trust.
Yeah.
The number of states has increased by 100% from 1 to 2. You're right.
Yeah. Tim, go ahead.
You know why that is? That they're breaching. Why they're suing people for being a breach in consumer trust? Because they are.
Well, okay, thank you, Captain
That'll be
Obvious.
for a court of law to decide.
No.
Well, and
Let's be fair.
this
Let's
is
be fair.
huge
Whether or not it's legal or not is for courts to decide. Whether or
Yes.
not it
Sure.
is absolutely, a little skeevy in the way they tend to be presented to consumers
Yep.
is not for a court of law to decide. That's for
Well,
That's
hopefully
public
the
opinion, yeah.
AHLA is going to hire the attorney team that helped Bill Clinton with his little questionable time with Monica Lewinsky, because they'll be able to ask, "What's your definition of violation of consumer trust?"
Well, and here's
What's
what
your
they're getting
definition
nailed
of
on. Yeah, well, in the Nebraska suit, they are saying that they're violating the Consumer Protection Act and the Uniform Deceptive
hotels
Practices
in
Trade Act. So they're legitimate acts, right? So, and
Are there
the
hotels
problem
in
is,
and
it's
that
drip
is,
pricing.
and by the way,
It's drip.
Nebraska
It is
about this.
drip pricing. It's drip pricing, and that's what nobody's talking about. None of the hotel companies are even mentioning the term. They're going, "Oh, you get value for this," and that's all just complete bullshit. Yeah, the whole thing. And Bjorn Hansen is a smart guy. I've known him for decades, but he's out there basically going, "Oh, but the hotel industry, their costs are rising faster than their revenues, and they need to." It's like, so increase
Wait.
your ADR.
Or become efficient.
Yeah,
Right,
either
right.
lower your costs, increase your rate. Don't do drip pricing. And in
Do
2017,
drip marketing, not drip pricing.
yeah, exactly. No, the Federal Trade Commission had an extensive report on drip pricing, and they were very even-handed with it, right? They covered it from all these different dimensions, had academician, all sorts of stuff. They said zero. They couldn't come up with one consumer benefit. There's just none, and it's a completely indefensible practice.
Well,
so
actually, I'm going to defend
yeah.
the practice for 1 second. I'm going to save Stort, because I know Stort has a lot of clients who make use of resort fees and the like.
Sure.
But I'll be devil's advocate on this one for 1 second. First of all, let's be really clear. There is not a single person on this show who does not want to see resorts and hotels make more money. We are all in favor of that. We want you all to get higher revenues. We want you to all have higher profits. Right?
Absolutely.
Top line, bottom line, everywhere in between. Right. I think the challenge, is that for many companies, many hotel companies, they've become somewhat dependent on these to make certain budget numbers and things like that. And they haven't yet come up with an alternative that allows them to make the same kind of revenues.
Raising the rate.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing, right? And first of all, again, I'm playing devil's advocate on this one, Ed. I don't actually agree with this, but I'm going to try to defend it. Okay. The reality is, it would be great if the best thing that could happen for these resorts would be if their state outlawed it.
Yep. Agreed.
Because then everybody would have to raise their rates.
Absolutely.
The challenge
Right.
today is, if you are the only one who raises your rates, then you have a yield curve
Right.
problem, right? You have a demand
Absolutely.
curve problem.
Yep.
You're priced significantly higher than everybody else in your market, and now you're going to lose occupancy, and that's going to create
You're going to
problems
lose occupancy if you somehow can't handle educating your consumer of the value proposition of what you're offering.
By the way,
well,
Ed,
no,
by the way,
and
Ed,
people-
I agree with that
No, no,
completely.
no.
So
And
I'm
this
playing
is-
devil's advocate on this one.
Right.
No, and this is the big problem, and why the FTC has to do this, right? They have to come down and say this practice has to stop, because if you are not using drip pricing and everyone else is, you are at a structural disadvantage. Because
Right.
and the interview I did with Travel Weekly, which I did not put on gratuitously self-promote, I think I came up with a little analysis. New York City, and you can see the Iroquois, who does not do it, has higher TripAdvisor ratings, things like that. They're all 4-star hotels, and it's a $290 a night. The ones at $260, you go, oh, well, it's the same. It's a little bit lower ranking, but why not? When you total it all out, you go, oh, look at that. It's $338. If the Iroquois is less expensive than these others, right?
Yes,
And so that's
the
and that's the
Iroquois
problem.
understands that it's expensive to keep having to acquire net new customers.
Right.
So paying attention a bit to customer lifetime value is, kind of a smart strategy. So maybe, not gouging with hidden fees or unclear
Right.
fees or
For sure, but I think long term, you're exactly right. I think we'd all agree with that strategy, but it doesn't solve the short term problem.
The short
People
term
have
is
to
the
continue
problem.
to make profit. You know,
Big Brother
And
has to
here's
be-
the
we all have-
fallacy. Here's the fallacy of the argument. And as I've said, I think I said it on the week, so sorry to repeat it. I will debate anyone, any place, anywhere, anytime on this topic. And once they agree, I tell them they have to pay my round trip first class airfare. They have to pay, my 5-star hotel, and they have to, feed me in a Michelin starred restaurant. And they get really pissed off that they didn't know about that up front. So anyway,
and then Robert just goes,
Mic drop.
yeah, well, no, and so, Mr. Hansen's, respectfully, $2.9 billion from the industry last year, and I believe that number. That's fine.
Yeah.
Calculate out. That is the value the industry created by because there is no
created
consumer
or
No, or
reallocated.
reallocated
Because
because
let's
it does
be
get
honest,
posted to
let's ask the
miscellaneous
question:
Yeah.
if resort fees had never existed, do we not think that the industry's rate wouldn't have gone up by a
Right.
relatively equal
There
amount?
should be zero. There should be zero impact because it's a mandatory fee.
Right.
Right. So if they're saying it's important, 2.9 billion in the industry, that is now the value of what this anti-consumer practice.
Right,
is
but
valued at.
consumers-
let me
the
add a
consumers
little.
understand that the resort fee is part of the overall cost of staying at the hotel.
Right.
Right.
So
It's
so,
a mandatory
So it's
fee.
the rate.
so I want to add a
And
little
it's
bit of color
subject-
to this, right?
And
Where
it's
did
subject. Hang on.
Yeah,
It's
wait.
also
Let's
subject-
sort. Hold on. Let's
Sure,
sort get a word in here.
Yeah,
Hold
let
on.
the smart
Go
guy
ahead,
talk.
so where did this come from, right? Where did the resort fee originate? It originated in resort type destinations, a lot of which have condotel, and I've talked about this on the show before.
Mhm.
The resort fee was introduced in the condotel market, which is a larger section of the market than you would imagine it is. Areas like Daytona Beach, Myrtle Beach, a lot of these beach destinations, majority of properties there are condotels, meaning that each individual unit has an individual owner, right? So there's a split of revenue going on. So when you pay $100 for that room to go stay in it, a percentage is going to the homeowner and a percentage is going to the management company. And so the resort fees were added initially by a lot of these resorts to mean that they could operate at a profit and fend off third-party management companies that were coming in and taking units to put on their own rental programs, right? So what would happen in a destination like Myrtle Beach, where literally I'd say 80% of the rooms in Myrtle Beach are condotels, is at the end of the day, if this law goes through, which it probably will and it probably should, but what will happen is the net effect is either consumers will be ultimately paying more because for the management company to make the same amount of revenue, they're going to have to increase more than the resort fee because the homeowners are going to have to get a percentage. Or the alternative is they're not going to invest as much in the quality of the product, and then consumers are going to suffer. So for condotels as a specific market, there needs to be an exception to this because otherwise consumers will suffer either by paying more or having worse experience.
Well, and somewhat for the hotel industry as well. Again, a lot of these fees, particularly when you start looking
How about a rule of
in Las
thumb?
Vegas.
If you're not a resort, don't have a resort fee. Let's start there.
But then you have an
Well,
urban
no.
city center fee or they
Well,
call
no,
it
they're
something
called
else.
destination fees, and a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
these present them. They make them look like a tax, right?
Right.
And the nomenclature makes it look like, oh, we have no control over it. But most of these fees, particularly in Las Vegas, when they started, they were not subject to room occupancy tax, right?
Right.
So that was a separate thing. Almost all the jurisdictions now do that, right? They changed the laws and went, wait a second, it's a mandatory fee. And again, my argument is always, why don't you have a $1 room rate and a $200 resort fee? It doesn't matter, right? It's all mandatory. So yeah, because it's completely arbitrary. But it was avoiding that tax. The major brands, I believe, have all
But
incorporated.
What you're saying is
They-
it
no,
was
hang
a
on, let me
tax
finish.
evasion scheme that now we're up in
And-
arms that consumers are also screwed by this, and we
Yeah.
should support it. Why?
Yeah, no, and the other one is it also avoided franchise fees, right? Because it's still booked as miscellaneous revenue, not as room
So,
revenue.
Again,
And guess what? All the brands changed their management or their franchise agreements to go and include this fee, right? Because they wanted to get a portion of it as well.
Right.
So you're sitting there going, "Wait a second, this is vile stuff."
well, and now the
on-
OTAs are
Yeah,
getting their markup on
Booking.com's going
them.
in.
Right.
Yeah.
So all that's left
Yeah,
is the
and the OTAs are
consumer.
going, "Why?" Yeah. Yeah, so
Okay,
it's
yeah.
basically the hoteliers trying to game the system all the
So,
way through, and you kind of look at it and
Even-
go,
even-
"You're
let's
right."
Be fair. Let's be fair. Let's be fair. Let's be fair. I mean, they may well be trying to game the system. They may also have good reasons for wanting to do so, right?
Right.
But some of the things that they're doing to game the system, like the example that Stewart gave, they kind of need to do to remain a profitable enterprise. And some of the things that they're doing to game the system, they're doing to game the system. And the point here isn't whether or not they should be able to charge more or how they charge or things along those lines, but they certainly shouldn't surprise customers with what the
Right.
cost is going to be when all is said and done, right?
So at what
And the
point
more
is
level
that,
up
though?
playing field, but the more
Right.
level of playing field we have in terms of customer transparency, the better it is for
Absolutely.
everybody.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
going to say before you put in your credit card, you should at least make it clear what the total
Well,
cost
but
of
who
the.
doesn't do
but
that,
that's not
right?
what your
Everyone
price
does
is.
that.
That's not
Everybody
what
does that.
people are
Yeah,
complaining
no.
about.
It's
No,
a
no,
drip
no,
price,
I
and
know.
it's the lead.
But so
Drip
let's
pricing is a
talk-
lead price that is different from your total price.
But let's talk
Right.
practical, right? So when someone does a search on TripAdvisor and sees the Trip Connect meta search on there, should that rate include taxes and fees?
Absolutely.
Okay, everything, because it doesn't always,
Right.
right? Now, should that be a
No.
total cost or a per room night cost?
It should be a total, and then you divide that total if you want to divide it per
Should
person,
be a
per
per
night.
person.
per
But you see what I'm
total,
saying? Like, there's a
whatever you
lot
wanna do.
of ways you can display rates. As long as
Right.
as long as everyone that's displaying there is using the same rules, and as
Right.
long as when you click from that to the
Right.
next page on the search, you get a breakdown of everything, and it's clearly defined, and it's not the when you get to the checkout page, oh, surprise, there's another thing. I think
am
it's okay
going
to have
to-
resort fees.
I'm going to
I-
tap into the old Yellow Pages business naming strategy. Name your hotel the No Hidden Fee Hotel. So that way, everywhere.
No, it would be AAA. No,
AA, yeah.
hotel fee.
No, but yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to give kudos.
Yeah.
I'm going to give kudos to something that nobody on the show listening to us would know about, but I'll give kudos to this. The
Because
methodology
nobody's listening.
that Flip2 is using right now, and that Field Travel is going to be using, and so forth, about the methodology. This might be a way to swing that to the direction of singular pricing without resorting. Because if your funnel description is correct, then having a truth of rate in that process of engagement will be an asset to the trusting build that goes through that process, more so than the discovery at the end.
I actually think this is probably like in the eyes of where this is pissing people off the most. I doubt it's the hotel's own website that is pissing people off the most.
No, it's not.
Right.
The hotels
It's
are doing
the
the same thing.
listings, it's the search results, it's
But again, as long as everyone's using the same rules there, and as long as it's clearly defined and expectations are set, I don't have a problem with it. It's no different than going
I'll tell
into
you-
Walmart and buying something for $9.99 and then paying $10 and something for it because taxes is added.
No,
Because
not.
we know that.
Taxes are
Whoa, whoa,
consistent
whoa, whoa,
across
but
all
let's-
products.
But that's what I'm saying. As long as
let's
it's
make a big
consistent.
distinction here between taxes. I mean, let's be really clear here. First of all, Stuart, I agree with you. Everybody should play by the same rules.
Right.
Secondly, we do want to be very clear because there is a difference between taxes and mandatory resort fees that are not taxes, that are just
Which are
an
arbitrary.
upcharge,
let's
right?
call them idiot tax.
No. I mean, the
Deceitful.
the thing is, if you say, "Hey, we've got rates from," and I'm making this up, you got rates from $299 or something along those lines,
You better have a
And
rate that's
and the
inside
guest
of
can
$299.
never actually pay $299 before tax, right?
Right.
Then you're lying to customers,
Right.
Period. Right?
Yeah.
it's
And that's
$299
deceitful. That's
plus the
deceitful
40 plus the
advertising.
$40
And that's
resort
where they
fee
lose.
plus tax, and that I absolutely would say is harmful to consumers and bad. But I also agree that it should be just mandated that everybody has to do that. If you're going to charge $40 more because that's what you're charging, then you don't have a rate from $299. You have a rate from $339, right?
And guess what happened in the airline industry and the car rental industry?
Right,
The
right.
government stepped in and went, "Stop this
Right.
now."
And that's
Right.
what's
Sort of
beginning
thing.
to happen here. It started
Yeah.
with DC.
Yeah.
It's now it's Nebraska.
It is.
Or it's,
There were
it's gonna
40
spread.
There were 49 state attorney generals on the conference call to the auto rental industry and whatever it was, 99 or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Going, guys, you
Yeah.
can do it
They
the
don't have
hard
any-
way or the easy way.
It's interesting, right, that they picked two different flags, and each one has only picked one flag.
That's the weird
DC
part,
was
yeah.
just Marriott, and then Nebraska's just Hilton.
Yeah.
That implies there's a game afoot, right?
There's a
That
cord-
some
I think
kind of
there is some
coordinated
sort of
effort
coordination.
to attack this.
Yep.
'Cause
And I think
otherwise it wouldn't make sense.
DC floated it because DC doesn't have, senators and representatives and things like that. So they have a little bit more flexibility and
So-
less political fallout sort of thing. And
so-
Marriott is very larger. I don't know the rationale of Nebraska.
Yeah,
doing-
Yeah, is there
Hilton,
a
is that
hotel in
like-
Nebraska?
yeah.
I mean,
So next, Wyoming's going to hit IHG. That's next week. So
I
we'll
don't
see
know.
what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But all of these are going, and I don't know. Maybe one of Marriott's defenses or Hilton will say we aren't the only one. But again, that's sort of like getting pulled over by the state trooper being told
wait,
you're going
wait,
90.
maybe
that's
Everybody
what
else is
happens,
going
yeah.
90.
hold on.
Yeah.
Actually, this is kind of interesting. Can Marriott or Hilton any longer be held liable for this because they no longer own hotels?
Yes,
Yes,
they can.
because they changed their franchise agreements and they specifically benefit
get their
from
cut.
these fees. To get their cut of these fees,
Yes,
which
but
Thus,
can't
they
they
are
pass the
authorizing
buck?
these fees. They're displaying these fees on their website.
they have fully
They're-
endorsed it by doing that.
And
requiring
mandate
it.
the transactions to go through them.
Yeah.
They're the coordinator.
Yeah,
of
yeah,
They have
I don't know.
legitimized
If
the
I was an
practice.
attorney,
They
if I was
offer
an
revenue.
attorney
They
for
offer
either
revenue
of them,
management services. You know, I mean,
for it. Yeah.
if I was an attorney for either of them, I would argue that this is a hotel level decision.
And they
We
would have
were
the
forced to have to support it because if we didn't build the architecture to display the fees, then we would be deceiving customers. Like,
I
I'm
gotta-
sorry.
and
You know,
I
I'm
gotta
going
tell
to
you,
call. I'm going to
speaking-
call both of them and offer to have a word with their legal teams.
Speaking as I think I'm the only person here who has worked for the world's largest hotel franchisor, you'd be amazed what states' attorneys generals think they can make you do and the like, right?
Yes. Mhm.
And it's cheaper to settle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, I'm throwing this one down. I'm throwing this one down for Stuart. I want to see Stuart's reaction on that article.
On which one?
Is this the mobile app one?
Yep.
Dude, I'm so mad at that article. Like that literally got me. It just, I get it, right? We all do what this article was. This is a guy or a company that sells in-room app tools, right?
Yeah.
That's their shtick. So the whole article is don't do this technology, do this technology. But
Right.
it was based in speculation and no data, and it was opinion, and it just made me so mad. So his argument was it's too much hassle to download an app was one argument. The other
But
one
hotel
was
buy all this technology that gets out of date in a short period of time and maintenance costs and everything else. But strangely enough, it's my product, so that works out fine
right.
for me.
What was the other argument
Wait,
he said,
hold
which
up.
really annoyed me? Oh, people only use their phone for social media. No one downloads apps. Well, let's put that to the test. The average consumer has more than 80 apps on their phone, of which they use, on average, 40 different apps every single month. So I call total bullshit on that.
Now, here's the thing, Stuart. Like, I kind of feel like there's an opportunity for Fuel to rebut this and
you
actually
do.
drive home the partial truths that they use to this. Because,
Exactly.
yes, actually, you know what? You will piss me off if your app does nothing and adds no value.
For sure.
However, if
Yeah.
you have an app that adds value, and
Right.
I'm gonna say it, I actually think Hilton's app is probably the
does.
best. It's the best
Oh,
piece of
no.
technology that company has ever
Genius
built.
that wrote this dismissed Hilton and Marriott apps because they're not hotel apps; they're franchise apps. So those are completely
Right, but I'm
different.
Except
I'm
they
more
open-
using it
except they
I'm
open
using it
doors
as
when you pick
as a
rooms.
surprising
Oh.
example. I was surprised that a brand was capable of building good architecture.
Yep.
So, and because of that, I looked
Oh,
at
man.
the app
That's-
and now I use
Oh,
it and I
made me so
like
mad.
it. I'm not surprised when I come across a really nice high-end hotel and they have good architecture because I work in this industry. I know it's easier for an independent hotel to move to good stuff.
yeah.
It's very hard for brands to move out of their legacies.
Yeah, they're just not agile enough. For
Right.
sure. Yeah.
So Stuart, I think you should write a rebuttal to this.
I'm probably going to do it.
And if you
'cause
want,
there's a lot
I
of
would be
opinions there.
happy to be quoted in it. And I'm sure other members of this broadcast would give you some tips to add
Yeah,
to it.
I will probably do that. It's amazing that it was a very, and it comes from a reputable resource too. It was a Hotel Tech Report that wrote it, but there was no counterbalance to it. It was like an advertorial.
Yeah.
Hold on. You can't call a company who is selling access to knowledge in this industry as reputable.
Perceived
They
as
are-
reputable, right?
Right.
They're
Well, hold on.
influential. They have an
They have-
influence.
They have influence, and actually they're good guys.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's not call it anything that it's not. It is a marketplace that is
Absolutely.
ubiquitous. You can purchase your position in that marketplace. So
Yeah.
they're going
Absolutely.
to print whatever it is they're getting paid to print.
For sure.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
and that's my problem, I guess. With
This
the
is not a
article, is
neutral
it's
marketplace.
so-
Yeah.
Right. It's so one-sided and misinformed, and it's going to impact people's decision making in a negative way. And I think that's frustrating.
Right.
I'm all about in property, in-room apps. I think it's a great amenity. I think down the road it is going to replace, physical brochures and things like that, and maybe even control aspects of the hotel. But it's a completely different utility than an app for a hotel. The ability to check in, check out, open your door, communicate in real time wherever you are, not just when you're in the room itself with the property, is tremendous. And we're seeing.
And by the way, you need to put a shot in this response of, by the way, it's probably not good to force your guests to have to use some Chinese Android knockoff tablet when they're used to using Surface Pros or
yeah,
Apple.
you're right. Consumer
so-
choice is
So
important, right?
Glass House's sweet pad.
Yeah.
Glass House.
There's so many holes I can pick in it, right? But the biggest
Yeah.
thing for me is, and full disclosure, we sell an app product, which is why I'm so fired up on this. But
Yeah, but you
We-
sell a good app product.
right,
Right.
but
It
we
doesn't- it
see
doesn't make
data,
you wrong.
and we back our opinions up with facts, not
Right,
opinions, right? So
Right.
we see that independent hotels get tremendous number of downloads.
Well,
To say
if you
it's
layer enough opinions, doesn't that eventually just turn into fact?
It
well,
does.
apparently in
That's
this day and age, yes.
Well,
facts and
welcome
opinions
to
are
Washington,
equal.
Congressman.
Right.
Right.
But independent hotels consumers will download an app. It is not too inconvenient. And not only do they use it for all the utility we talked about, but they also choose to use that and an increasing number to come back and book the hotel next time.
Right.
Listen,
we have
it's
hotels
another.
where, hold on, 3% of total bookings for some of our hotel clients are coming directly through the native app. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but
That's
that
a
was
lot.
0 2 years ago.
Exactly
Right.
And it's growing
So,
rapidly.
But this is yet another in the line of these vendors that are coming out and just like saying whatever the hell they want
Yep.
to try to suck you in, and they're flash in the pan. I mean, and listen, I always hold back on naming this company, but I mean, no one watches this. We all know who I'm talking about when I talk about the attribution theft vendors.
Attribution theft is real.
Attribution theft is real, but this is just this is a company that is now taking from kind of the playbook that those big attribution theft vendors have taken, which is, make it sensational, make it like crap on someone else
Right.
in your marketing to make your position known. Because here's the thing, no one cares about in-room tablets that much. Like
Right.
there's not a lot of talk happening about the future of in-room tablets.
There are a lot
And
of
there
vendors
is
in
no-
that space, though.
there
It's
are
a
a
very
lot.
competitive,
And the
crowded space.
Deadpool,
Yes,
the Deadpool
because
is going to be
the barrier
deep and wide.
the barrier to entry to bulk order and like Chinese knockoff Android tablets is super low.
Right.
Well, yeah, and some of these products will survive. They just won't scale. They'll just have a couple of marquee clients,
Yeah.
and they'll survive with 10
But-
employees, and they'll
Well,
be fine.
and good
you know,
luck.
and they'll make their
Good
living.
luck with that hardware when that tablet or the operating system or whatever gets deprecated for whatever
Right,
new
right.
and you're hosed. I mean, it's an ugly, ugly scenario.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
the other thing though is it's all going to be, and HTNG has a number of work groups that are looking at these, everything, the guest room entertainment, all the the authentication and validation, and everybody's talking about all this personalization stuff. Well, you need a platform to be able to do that, and if you're introducing a third piece of technology that you have to share all your data with so it can be that is going to be a losing
Listen, guys,
proposition.
bring your own device
Is
the wisest choice to make. And
Yeah.
oh, by the way, in order to fulfill bring your own device, you need a what? A high quality app.
Yeah.
The easiest way.
But
Yeah.
that it does lend itself to indicatively the problem that we have systemic with the industry is a follow the leader mentality. When you're talking about these things, you're talking about Peninsular hotels, you're talking about Aria hotels, that other hotels looking at, they're doing it, then we should do it because they put in all this
but
technology.
No
And
one
then they-
talks about the fact that go stay at Aria and tell me how good that technology feels today.
It's nuts.
It's
horrible.
so bad.
And it does. They don't even utilize half of its potential. I told you that when I was there last, and I love the place. Don't get me wrong.
That's a beautiful hotel.
Oh,
But
Peninsula is beautiful.
It is. It's an amazing hotel. And the service was
That
great.
tech has not aged well, though.
No, but like they have 5 convention channels on their TV, okay, which you think would be great. You get to know what's going on. It's a huge convention space, and all of the channels had no content on them. Coming
Right.
soon, yet to be posted.
Right.
Even a blue screen that says error.
But if you remember, Aria was really that first fully automated room wake and, all of that.
Mhm.
And it was awesome the first time you saw it, when, what was it? The iPhone 3 was, I think, the iteration back then. But here's the thing. Tech has moved very quickly since then. And Aria was a forefront runner of this type of technology and invested so much money in it. And guess what? Now it's a friction point of their
Right.
room.
Right.
Right. It's net negative, not
Cosmopolitan,
positive.
Cosmopolitan, same thing. They had.
Yep.
I remember checking in there, and it wasn't like right after opening. They'd been open even a year. I stayed there a couple times. Even after, like a year later, they had all these tablets that you could go use at the front. They were totally useless. I think you kind of signed your name or
Batteries
something.
were
That
dead,
was
screens were
it.
cracked.
Oh yeah, it was awful. The stuff in the user interfaces for controlling the drapes and all this stuff and the learning, you're just looking at this going, what the hell?
Listen.
I would rather walk over and be able to, I can't open the blinds. I've got to go get the tablet, open the tab, go down here.
Hey, by the way, I learned something really cool, Stuart, on my voice control stuff. If you ask them to lower the volume down on the voice control to 25%, it won't answer you when you tell it to do something, which is what my wife has been dying for. She's like, I don't want.
They
to
also have some of them have like a brevity switch that in the settings. You can say I want minimal responses as well.
I just ended up by accident stumbling this where I turned down the volume on at 25% and it stopped talking back to me like, okay, Google, turn off light 1, and it says, turning off light 1. Now it doesn't say anything because I turned down.
Amazon. Just changed that.
Lauren, it does
That
say
was a
you just
change
can't
this
hear
last
it
week.
because you're old and deaf.
Well, that might be true too.
No, Amazon, the latest upgrade to the Echoes, things like that, it will no longer reply back when you say turn down the lights and things
It
like
just
that.
dings. It makes
Because
like
you can
chime.
see the lights. If they didn't go
Yeah.
down, there's a problem. There's another form of feedback they figured out. So
Yeah.
it's like,
They're getting better all the time. We just
Hey,
had it
by the
even
way,
more.
I want to give kudos to WP Engine. There's a webinar. I'll put the link in the show notes. It was ADR compliance webinar yesterday. One of the most informative, complete, unbiased, not trying to sell me something webinars I've been on in a long time.
Stuart,
Cool.
is the fuel
Everything.
booking engine ADA compliant?
Sure is, yeah. We pass all the scans. So the challenge is with us is our booking engine is different than a lot of others in that it gets embedded in the website. So occasionally we end up with the website itself is not ADA compliant, which takes our booking
Right.
engine out of compliance.
Right.
So if
The
header
reason I
and footer-
asked is I was shocked to hear. I mean, have you guys heard of any of the big booking engines not being ADA compliant?
It's the Nexus?
Really?
Yeah.
It's not?
No.
No, that one I didn't know. It was another one that I was shocked to hear. I was talking
Yeah.
to a friend of mine who's going through kind of building a brand's marketing stack right now.
Mhm.
And I was talking to her about the booking engine side, and she had pointed out to me that this booking engine that is a pretty has been pretty well known for being on the forefront of developing new crap to add to their booking engine, is not even responding to requests to become ADA compliant.
Wow.
either.
I will be specific about the Nexus. The GS versus JS series book window is different. One is not compliant. The other one is closest to being compliant.
Closest. Yeah.
Well, and actually, we've been saying ADA compliant. I
Right.
think
WCAG.
Who needs to know
2.0.
that it is the American Dental Association, right? I got that right.
Well, and I think we the broader discussion is, what does ADA compliant mean on websites? I think it's still ambiguous, right? I think you adhere to a set of standards, which 3.0 just came out recently and is a little more strict. So we're 2.0 AA compliant, but I think people still, and this was Tim actually that made me start thinking this way more. It kind of crept into my consciousness, but I think this is something I say to a lot of our clients now that start whining about having to do this. It's like, this is the right thing to do. You should do everything you can to make everything you do accessible to as many people as possible.
It's
It's
the
just
right
the right thing to do.
And
What's that?
and I know I've said this before, but I was sued for this. I worked for a company that was sued for this
Yeah.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
stuns me that we are still
Having the
this
conversation.
discussion.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
something
Like,
interesting.
this shouldn't be like, oh golly, wow, this came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
There
This
there
has
are a
been around
lot of
for a
drive-by
decade and a
lawsuits
half.
now, right? And,
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
That one's
and
got to be
I get the
industry
frustration that causes, but it doesn't
Yeah.
change the underlying
Yeah,
fact
but
that you should be
what
doing
I was
this.
more shocked about, that this was one of the big booking engines.
Right. Well,
And-
to your point there a second ago, Ed, that they're not even responding to requests. That's going to bite them in the ass hard at some
Yeah.
point. Because one
Oh, yeah.
of two things is going to
I
happen.
think that would be
Either
cause.
They're
be
all
able
going to switch to
I-
fuel. That's the thing that's going to happen.
exactly right. Well, that's
Yeah.
just it, though. That is just it. Because one of two things is going to happen, and they're bad for this company, whoever it may be. And I'm not going to speculate on who it is at the moment, though I have my guesses.
It may surprise you,
one-
actually.
Well, one of two things is going to occur, right? Either they're going to get sued heavily, right? That's going to cost them a lot of money, or their customers are, and their customers are going to say, wait, I have a better option. I can just move to X and not have this problem. And they're going to lose a lot of
Listen,
customers.
if I was on a sales team of a company that
Oh
offered a
my
booking
God, I would
engine,
be selling so hard
it
against
would
Oh,
be
that's
my
point
lead-in.
number one.
Point number one, the booking engine you're currently using is
Is
not
no-
and has no intention of
Yeah.
going
I
through
would
this.
say,
Like lawyers like
I would
risk.
say,
Like
say
risk in your
exactly.
business.
The booking engine you are using, the booking engine you're using is going to get you sued.
Yep, that would be the subject
we
line.
use that approach. Not quite that aggressive language, but we definitely
be
use
aggressive.
that as leverage.
Be
They
aggressive.
give one interesting stat: the litigation expansion over the past 2 years has tripled each year on top of
Yes.
itself.
Yeah.
So first you
Oh,
tripled, and the second you tripled the tripling, and the third you tripled the tripling of the tripling. You
Yeah,
know,
but luckily you can't
They call
fold
it-
a piece of paper more than 7 times. So like it's just right?
Otherwise, the universe
in this
breaks.
case, I think they are. But I'll put the link to it because it really was a great webinar. They went through. I didn't even realize some of the new stuff that was coming as you said, Stuart, in the 3, where
Yeah.
it's activation. Where because if you can, based on the impairments and so forth, that
Right.
once you activate something, it'll actually acknowledge that it's been activated. You think about that. If you can't see the screen and you click a button, did you know it actually worked? And I'm like, that makes such common sense. It's like, holy crap! Why don't you want your website to do that, right?
Yeah.
You want the person to have the experience to be.
It's sad that we need laws.
Right.
So,
Why wouldn't you
Right,
want to do
right.
that? You know?
Well, but we've just made the point why you need the law, because otherwise it won't. You have the law.
no, I'm saying it's sad that you need the laws.
No, this
Yeah.
is one where you shouldn't need the law to do the right thing because you're trying to do what's right by a guest, and there is an economic benefit to you because you know what? What percentage of people in this country are visually impaired?
There's
It's
a large.
about 8. It's about 8%,
Yep.
right?
Right.
What percentage of people in this country are hearing impaired?
3 out of 5 on this show are.
Right, exactly.
Wait, what'd you say?
You actually have a benefit. And if your competitors aren't doing this and you are, guess what? That's business you're going to win often because
Well,
they can actually book
and-
you. They can't book them.
Right. It's
And
actually
if
it's
you
an
have
advantage. You
somebody-
don't even have to pay money to advertise.
Well, that's what I mean. Right.
Hey, and
I think
what happens when you have a voice interface that doesn't have this? This sets you up to do so many things
Correct.
more flexibly and better. Anyway,
Correct.
right?
I
It
remember
also
I'm
has
getting-
SEO benefits. It has. I
Yeah.
mean, there are so many reasons why this is actually a good thing to do.
I think I may have told this story in the show, but before. But this goes back to like 2002, 2003. I went to a seminar back before there was ever webinars, and it was about ADA accessibility. And this guy was talking about so. And this is long before social platforms even began to come into process.
Mhm.
And I got really jazzed about this. Like, oh, this is amazing. Yeah, And I said, how do I get in on this? And he says, just give good service.
Yep.
Because if you give good service to the special needs travelers,
Absolutely.
you have refrigerators for their insulin, and you have these things, you're going to have immediate loyalty. It's not a price point issue. It's a accommodations, and it's and it's before
Hospitality.
social media happened. Their communities talk to each other long before we ever had social platforms. People have similarities of
forums.
issues.
Oh,
They
sure.
keep and once they
Forums,
find
they
out
have-
hotel
yeah,
accommodates
exactly
that, that's loyalty. And
Yeah.
it's, and so it is, and it's a good thing. We're a hospitality industry. We want to provide service. People travel. That's it. We want to be able to
Amen.
be those people.
Yeah. So pro tip, this is something we recommend to all our clients and have done for a while is, what are you doing from an accessibility standpoint? And it's really came to the forefront for us because we had one of those drive-by lawsuit letters to one of our clients, and it wasn't about the website not being ADA compliant because or standards compliant. It was that they didn't speak enough on the website, or it wasn't findable what accessibility stuff they had on property. So what was the expectation for someone with a disability when they came to on property? So we built out content for them around that and put it in plain view and made it easy to find. And that page gets a ton of traffic, and now they've seen
and I'll put a
increase
caveat
in bookings.
too. There is a burgeoning business.
I
People-
apologize. This is a great conversation, but I do have to go. I realized what time it was.
12:36. All right, Mr. Ed.
See you, Ed.
Flip through.
See
Thank
ya.
you.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
All right. Bye. One of the things was that they were talking about there's burgeoning business that there's a lot of companies out there that are acting like they're going to help you with ADA compliance.
Mm-hmm.
And they're making false claims as to what they can do for you. Nobody can make you, and this is an established, absolute 100% fact. Nobody is 100% compliant.
Correct.
Ever.
Correct.
You are making every effort you can to be as accessible as possible,
Correct.
but you are never 100% compliant. And they even
Correct.
gave the example, this one guy made a website that spoofed all the systems to be 100% compliant, but you couldn't read the site. You can't touch it with a mouse. You can't touch it with a keyboard. You can't do anything with it. It's an absolutely unusable page, but according to the technology of tracking, it is a 100% compliant site. So, there is no 100% compliance. There is an effort to be 100% attempt to be compliant, and there's steps to do that, but be careful. Small businesses are out there trying to pitch. And put you on page one on Google.
Well,
There's
but here's the twist. There is a twist with that, though, because that's when you're looking at a single page. Who says you can't have navigation paths where you go, oh, you're now in this channel versus as long as you can make them get there very easily.
Well,
then you can wind up doing it. But again, that's more that's more complexity.
It's
and-
definitely
Stuart, as the guy who builds websites, you had something you wanted to say on this.
No, I mean, it's obviously core to what we do with every client. It's a conversation that we're having more and more, and we encourage everyone, again, to adhere to the 2.0 AA standards. I think you could argue going to AAA, but we feel like, that's a little overkill, and it adds some complexity and sacrifices certain things. But the thing we always encourage people to remember with ADA compliance is it's not something that's done and finished ever. Because if you're adding content to your site on a constant basis, any image you add to the site could all of a sudden break it for that one consumer that comes on that site that day. If you don't put an alt tag, an alt attribute on the image tag, then all of a sudden that consumer that is visually impaired has no idea what's in that image, and that's unfair, and you potentially lose that customer. So
and a lot of these alt tags are just ridiculous, right? Because they aren't describing what's in the image. They're getting SEO-ified and
people
things like
started
that.
abusing those for SEO benefit, but you can have the best of both worlds, because really you're trying to do the same thing, right? You're trying to describe to a search engine or to a visually impaired consumer what the value is in the image, what it's about, not necessarily a long description of man in t-shirt with blue shorts, but I think it's more of a useful description of what's in that image.
Yes. Correct. And they made that great. Funny you make that point, Stuart.
Well,
they made that a great point in the presentation as well.
Yeah.
Well, you can do the thing. I mean, there's a type of photography you use on websites all the time that is, I always refer to as the smiling ladies photos, right? They're not high value pictures. They're just a picture of the smiling person, right?
They're generating emotion, right?
They're generating emotion. And at that, you know what? You don't have to put any alt text at all. You just have to put an empty alt attribute to say that this is an image you don't have to tell anybody anything about because it's not a high value image.
Yeah.
Like the point is, are you doing the right things to take care of what the needs of the customer are?
Yeah.
Right? If the image contains information that's actually meaningful and useful, you should have alt text that describes what that is.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it's okay to have alt text that says, ignore the crap out of this image because it's of no value to anybody.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, a lot of the scanners that people use will fail you if you have blank alt attributes. So,
it depends on the it depends on the scanner, and it depends on specific things. The problem with the scanner is simply flagging, here are things that we found that may be problematic to point a person to look at them and say, exactly.
And that's where you need to balance between the tech and personal engagement.
Correct.
The best way to go through is find reputable organizations that are offering both the analysis, technical analysis, and the real user analysis.
I bumped into a vendor at High Tech at lunch. It was one of those serendipitous things where I sat down at lunch and there was a guy sitting next to me and we just started chatting. And I really can't remember. I've got his card somewhere. I'll dig it out. But he has a company that does exactly that. You hire them, license them, whatever it is, flat monthly fee, and they continue to scan and monitor the site. But a lot of it's manual too. They have visually impaired people or people with physical disabilities that have to use assistance devices to come and test your website. So you get real feedback from real people that you're really impacting, and that's really the ideal scenario.
Over to this webinar was funny. I always imagined, and this is my own biasness to, is that the people that were having the hardest time to adapt the site to would be the visually impaired. But it actually is turning into the larger is the aging of the audiences, and the physical engagement of a mouse and keyboard and the navigation functionalities associated with that impairment are actually the larger and growing faster entity in the engagement of and I was surprised I didn't think about that. It's like, there is that. So,
well, as the token visually impaired person that has to use assistive devices on the show, a lot of what you adapt to is the technology you're using. So regardless of the screen, I use the Apple native screen reader sometimes, or the Apple native Zoom functionality sometimes. So as long as it's clear and as long as your website doesn't do something funky when I try to zoom into it, then it's fine. You don't really have to do a lot for me to navigate it easily. But someone with a physical disability, the inability to be precise with their mouse pointer or something like that, or can single click, that's something that's more of a challenge. Sure.
And it's an increasing problem. A very good friend of mine, one of my best friends in the world, has a hand tremor. Has hand tremors, right? Yeah. And that's a very real problem for him, especially on a trackpad or a mouse. And it's that kind of stuff that the more he can do on his keyboard, the better off he is. And that is an increasingly large percentage of the population. I'll tell you what, one of the best A/B tests we ever ran, and this was doesn't matter where it was. One of the best A/B tests we ever ran, we actually were able to increase conversion by a meaningful amount by simply increasing the font size. Because we just made it easier for people to read. And it worked out really well,
Right.
So again, a lot of this is about, are you doing what's right for the guest?
Right. Yeah. And then they give some great examples of, like, to your point, the font, the colorization, obviously, the density of the font spacing, just things and how it reads and so forth. And there's so much to it that's to the benefit of the guest. It's not because you're afraid of somebody chasing you down legally. Correct. That's out there. It's not because you can make more money. Yes, that's possible. It's about what are we in the industry for? Is to treat guests the best we can and make it easy. So,
it's interesting.
At the top of the hour, is going to be checking on us to get some lunch. Would be the metasearch conversation.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, pizza cake. Pizza cake. No. Lauren, you and I are going to have the same fight we had last time, and I'm not going to do it this time. Here is the simple point. What have I always said? I don't include Google in this, right?
Right. I agree.
Okay. Go to the 15th paragraph of that. Go to the 15th paragraph of that.
Google. It's all about Google growth.
The growth is all in Google.
Find where the growth is.
Yeah, it's Google.
All Google. Yeah, I agree 100% with you on this one, Tim. This is not meta search is growing. It is the influence of Google is growing.
And that's what
the fact that Google has made.
I'm acquiescing because, a couple of things is, one is as I handle meta search, Google, let's just say Google, firsthand now.
Mm-hmm.
For clients, firsthand. We're not mitigating with somebody else and they're bidding and handling, but actually handling it. It's shut off Kayak, shut off TripAdvisor, shut off Trivago, shut off it's now I do flip the switch up on them every once in a while, depending upon
for sure. They're an option, right? Same as TravelZoo is an option if you get desperate, right?
But when it comes to what I'm really working and massaging and manipulating and is flat out Google ad, that HBA is what I'm doing.
And I've said this many times before. I will say this another time, just for the 2.5 people who happen to be listening right now, so they've heard it at least once. Meta search is not a company. Meta search is not a product. It's a feature, and Google has added meta search to its search results, and that's why they're getting 67% of the spend on meta search, up from 24% 3 years ago.
Right. I manage advertising budgets for hundreds of hotels.
Right.
I'm literally right now I'm managing $0 on Kayak, $0 on Trivago, but a shit ton more right now than I ever have before on Google, and even more on TripAdvisor as well. TripAdvisor is increasing a little bit as well.
Right.
But the majority of growth has all been in Google HBA.
Well, and you saw the Trivago earnings this week. Basically, their losses are lowering, so I guess they're getting a little bit more
decreasing.
But their big thing is they are going to be doing more on Google hotel ads, right? You kind of go, okay, well, that's
right.
Well, their whole argument was, and if you look at Trivago, right, as an example, they said 38% of their revenue is coming from Booking.com, 35% is coming from Expedia Group, so 70+% of their revenue is coming from two customers who are OTAs.
Right.
Who are just trying to maximize visibility so that they can steal your bookings.
Now, I know this is not one article you put in there, Robert, but it does kind of go a little bit in conversation with the article I'm going to post here about moving from Google to Facebook as if it was lastminute.com. Facebook just got nailed for $5 billion. Zuckerberg can't control the security. He has to do with an independent party to help him mitigate the security protocols of Facebook, which we know is just not going to anyway. So from that perspective of things, does this change the landscape for how we see channel distribution? I mean,
that $5 billion is what, 1 month?
Yeah, that's $5 billion.
Or something like that. Yeah.
That $5 billion is the fee that Facebook has to pay to keep doing what they've always done.
Yeah, they didn't change any future.
It's a toll.
Requirements.
It's like a toll.
They didn't change any methodology, of security. They didn't change a gathering of data. They just said, "Give us $5 billion and we'll leave you alone." And by the way,
that is what happened. By the way,
and these little group of people over here, you have to talk to about what you plan on doing for security. But we're not going to tell you what you need.
It's the mafia boss's taste, like how all their underlings have to pay a taste to the boss. That's all it is.
That's exactly right. It's the FTC saying to Facebook, "Hey, that's a nice little business you got over there. It'd be a shame if something happened to us."
That's right. You got to pay it up to the boss, man. Always.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's the big.
But that article, I forget who it was, where the budget shifting from Google to Facebook was interesting, but not for probably the reasons they intended. Because again, this is another article where I feel like they kind of missed some of the point, and they're almost trying to imply everyone should shift budget from Google to Facebook, which I think
that
we would
was
all
the headline,
right, which is kind of clickbaity. But then they kind of doubled down on it in the content too. But Facebook is great. It's still underpriced. It's still the best way to target individuals on dimensions that you can't in Google, no question. But it's different in that you're trying to gain interest. You're trying to generate an interest. Whereas on Google, you're harvesting an intent that already exists, right? So it's definitely different. And the other thing is, the volume of spend that can be achieved on Google is a lot greater than can be achieved effectively on Facebook. Facebook has a diminishing return once you reach a saturation point.
That's right. Yeah.
So, we have a lot of clients that spend money on both channels, and yes, they've increased on both channels. And I'd say over the last 5 years, GHA with the exception, they've probably increased more on Facebook than they have on Google Ads.
Yep.
But it's reached a ceiling. Like we're maximizing it at where it can be profitable. So, to say or imply that you should dump all your money from Google or a chunk of it from Google into Facebook, I just think is foolish.
Well, the thing that I always think about with this, and this goes back to a lesson I learned a long, long time ago, is when I worked for Charles Schwab during the .com boom, right? And one of the things that Chuck Schwab was always very fond of talking about was the power of and, right? He's like, too many people in this world want to make things either or, right?
Yes.
And there's way more power in saying this and that, not this or that.
Yep.
Facebook has its place, Google has its place, and when you do it correctly, they work really well together, and you're in a much better position.
Yeah.
So the thing that troubled me about the article was they made it sound like pull all your money from Google and put it into Facebook, and that is a terrible idea. Just like anybody saying pull all your money from Facebook and put it into Google would also be a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to set back my old days when I used to own a restaurant, and vendors would come in to sell me food, and they wanted exclusivity. The Cisco's, the Cheney Brothers, whatever. They wanted this exclusivity. Hey, we'll give you these super great discounts if you only buy through us. And I'm like, I tell you what, I'll dedicate certain products to you so I can get some pricing points of perpetual products, so forth and so on. But I'm keeping certain aspects of what I buy, certain food products, open to open market where people come through. And then now I get some vendors come in and they'll lowball me to get in the door to give me the product, and then they start to bring the price, and I shift. So you do what every small business owner does. You wait for running a restaurant. You open up the day. You start calling your vendors. What are my price on grouper per pound? Blah blah blah. Okay, great. Give me 10 pounds of this or 50 pounds over there, and you negotiate between them. The same thing with all of the market strategy you do. You balance out based on the results you're getting. What you need. It's not shove it over here to Facebook today because that's what we're going to do. Shove it over here to Google. It's like, no, Facebook's yielding based on the type of market, the demographic, the time of year,
the goal that you have.
It's in a storyline, and you begin to produce trust and communication. Over here on Google, do I have to hard sell it because it's a short-term window? Do I have everything has its value based on what the cost factor, and it's a balancing act. It's not, to your point, Tim, it's an and relationship. These are all tools, like flipping a switch back on for Trivago. Rare, but does happen.
Well, and if I can add one point to that, and I think this is part of what you're saying, Lauren, but if you decide I'm going to put 100% of my business, 100% of my customer acquisition in the hands of one company, you're a moron. Right? You are setting yourself up.
Trust them. It'll be fun to go wrong.
You are setting yourself for long-term pain. You absolutely should be getting business from Google. You absolutely should be getting business from Facebook. You absolutely should be getting business from TripAdvisor. I'm going to say it. You absolutely should be getting business from Expedia. You absolutely should be getting business from Booking.com. You absolutely should be getting business from Hotel Tonight. And you should be playing them off one another every opportunity you get to ensure you get the best return overall on where your money goes, and that you're not dependent on one. So if they change the rules, you suddenly find yourself going, uh-oh, like that is a terrible place to be.
And if you are dependent on them, what value are you offering? In which case you are now increasing the likelihood of you being disintermediated, where they go, wait a second. If I'm getting everything from there, why don't I just connect the dots?
But to bring it full circle, unfortunately, in our industry, hotels are operating exactly like that. They're going to a single agency and relying singularly on their choice processes and their service profiles only, and relying on not validating that is the best combination ratio. They're not taking a hand in their own success. They're pushing it over to one side and saying, here's all the chips, you play the cards.
And then if you have this problem, contact Lauren Gray at Hospitality Marketing. Robert Cole at Stuart, you move all your money to fuel.
Stuart likes when they do that. Stuart's like, what do you mean? That's a great business model.
It doesn't that you have to do it. Let them be the facilitators. trust them to do everything you need because they're not your business. You know your guests better than they do. You know your product better than they do. You need to be the one that reminds them and guides them between two little bumpers where they should be driving what you want them to drive you to. Not because so because of that, and then also it's also the blind faith in the fact that it's being handled. The politics of it's not my problem if it fails. I handed it over. It's not my problem.
And then blind faith in the data too.
That's the one place I will take issue with what you just said, Lauren.
Okay.
In many cases, I don't think that's the reason. I think the reason that is because most of the people, at least I run into, the reason they're doing that is because they're too busy running their hotel. They're not marketing experts. They are not experts in how you go and find customers. They're not experts in distribution, things along those lines. What they are is good hoteliers who are focused on, you know what, I've got I've got water damage in room 23 that I got to take care of. I've got that is the bigger issue.
But
and they figure I will hire these folks to take care of it for me, and then they just often assume that they are.
But I agree with you because to run a hotel is one thing, to market is another. But to be aware of the process is what I say is important. To be blindly,
I agree completely.
Know what they're doing. Not that you can do it better than them. When I ever ran own restaurants, I may not have been my best line cook, but I knew how to cook the menu. So if in case a line cook didn't show up, I could play the position. I'll be slow. It ain't going to go well. But I'll buy a few extra free dinners for people that had to wait too long. But
at a minimum, you knew what questions to ask the cook to ensure you were hiring somebody who knew what they were doing.
Exactly.
Well, I think one of the challenges.
You don't want me to work on the line, but I certainly can tell you this person should be cooking and that person should be washing the dishes.
And I think one of the challenges is hotels don't always know what questions to ask.
That's right.
So there's a lot of agencies out there that really jumped on the programmatic display and then ultimately programmatic bandwagon, right? And then they'll show attribution models that make it look amazing as a return, and people just don't know how to scrutinize or criticize that. We've actually found relationships with a few people and gone in with them because we started out the conversation as, hey, let's just take a look at what you're doing and give you an unbiased opinion and on what's working, what's not. And sometimes we'll come in and say, this is doing great. They're doing great here, great here. Whoa, this is not right, but it's about building trust with a provider, whether that's an individual consultant or whether that's an agency, building a trustworthy relationship where you can believe what they say and they're operating in your interest and the long-term interest of the relationship.
For hoteliers who are watching this show, and I'm dead serious about this, you want to know what questions to ask your agency, listen to the Fuel Travel Podcast. I am not blowing smoke.
Absolutely.
It is the best, here's how you market a hotel 101 podcast or resource, frankly, that I've ever come across. So,
and it's not even just 101. It's about thinking strategically. It's about looking at things in their entirety, not just in their singularity, of looking at what the effect of these combinations work for. It's like, I was going to say, it's like I come across when people ask me to do auditing, like we're talking about, either opaque or transparent, as to performances and so forth. And about halfway through the audit, as we discover things, especially critical things, where it's like they need to know this before the end of the audit finishes because it's actually costing them money right now.
Right.
The first reaction I get is like, well, Lauren, maybe you guys can come in and take that over. Maybe we want to consider you. It's like, stop. You brought me in to do the audit. Once the audit's done, if you want to talk to me about doing something else, fine. But let's do the audit, because if we do the audit with the intent of me trying to take over the business, you have to sell it to everybody else too. Yeah. How does it look? Looks like I'm trying to make it look like they're bad, me good. I do good, they do bad.
That's right.
Lauren, conflicts of interest. You need to get past those. Come on. Just think how much more revenue you can get, and you can expand the
same way I don't do affiliate.
Unfortunately, that's how too many people in the industry operate.
But all that being said, so yeah, thank you for that. The last is the rot row. We have a couple minutes to do the rot row before Tim has to boot scooch. Yeah, right, I'm not geeking out, Tim. Tim, if you have the time, I love it if you can stay longer. I just know that you usually at the top of the hour have to go grab lunch.
Yeah, I got to leave around 1.
Yeah. We sorry, go ahead and hit the rut row, Robert.
The rut row wasn't that much of a rut row. I mean, I was a little,
kind of a whoa.
Somebody went and designed in these beautiful cliffs overlooking the fjords of Norway, decided to build a concept of a hotel where you have 3 floors of hotels built into these cliffs, which of course won't have any views because they can't really do that.
Rock view.
Or just you're going to be an interior room inside a cliff. But then they had this very extended swimming pool out over the cliffs, which just really seemed to be a bad idea, especially because they didn't just cantilever it; they actually have it suspended. There's some cables, supporting it. This does not look like a good idea.
There is no way in hell I would ever step foot on that thing.
Right,
No way.
exactly.
There's no way.
So I will agree with you completely. I am deathly afraid of heights. It is something that I can't stand more than anything in this world.
Really?
Oh, I'm not kidding. I saw those.
Is it heights
pictures.
or is it falling? I'm really
it's actually
afraid
the
of
sudden.
falling.
It's really the sudden stop at the end.
Yeah, the falling part is great.
Yeah.
The free fall is exhilarating. It's just,
Yeah. It's the
sticking the
sudden
landing
deceleration to zero. That troubles me.
Yeah.
And there is no way in hell. Like I look at the photos and literally my hands and feet tingle. So I'm like, nah, I'm good.
I'm
man.
out of this one.
So
I'm out of this
there's,
one.
there's a suspension bridge in North Vancouver that goes across this great little.
Nope, there is not.
Oh,
Well, no. So I brought Renee. We went up to Vancouver.
Stanley Park, right?
Yeah. So I'm trying to be the brave one. It's like, oh, this is no big piece of cake, so forth and so on. What I didn't account for is the sway that I don't control because other people are walking on the bridge. So I'm walking out with Renee. Renee's like,
Nope.
It's like, hold on to me, I'll be fine.
All the notes.
Going, holy Jesus.
You don't like that little butterflies in your stomach thing when?
Oh,
when
yeah.
the
Oh,
yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. And,
I'm with Tim on this one, 100%.
The longest
Okay.
class we have, the
Now-
longest that is cracking. You meant to be the one that
No. There's in the movie Navy SEALs, starring Charlie Sheen and Michael Biehn and a whole bunch of other folks from the 80s. It's a really terrible movie. Terrible movie. Maybe the 90s. I don't remember. Bad movie. Anyway, it has one of the great lines. The guy who is their sniper does not like when they have to parachute into a location. And, they said, what's your issue? And he said, well, we got a perfectly good airplane. I see no reason I need to jump out of it. And that's sort of my approach to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
I got to tell a quick story. This is one of my dad's war stories from World War II. My dad used to fly Corsairs off the USS Essex, which is a big aircraft carrier out in World War II. And there
thank
was
God
one.
he did, by the way.
He did. You know the flag that they're putting up? The famous thing at
Iwo
Iwo Jima?
Oh, yeah.
My dad strafed the beaches there in his Corsairs, so he made that possible. So, and he still wasn't as much as a badass as my mom, who was a operating room nurse in the Philippines. That's not. Yeah, flying around a plane is not anything compared to that. So, but anyway, there was one of the Marine aviators. He wasn't in the Navy; he was in the Marines. Was deathly afraid of water, and he's out on
Who was your dad?
No. This is fellow aviator, right? Another pilot. Very, fear of water, and he's out on an aircraft carrier out in the middle of the Pacific, flying these planes, with people shooting at him and stuff. And the big thing was he was freaked out that if he got out of, if he had to eject, he would drown under the parachute. This was like a paralyzing fear. They told him, no, don't worry. You go down and you unhook, your harness and you hang on to it. Wait until you feel water, and then you let go and you swim for it, and you'll be fine. Right? If you do it like that, it's just people go in the water. They go, just do that. You're good. So he does that. He feels, the water. Unfortunately, he was at like 5,000 feet or something like that when he.
Oh no!
And unfortunately for him, he landed about 100 yards from the aircraft carrier. So everybody's saying, boom, broke both legs, survived. Right? And they fish him out. Wow. This is great. And my dad said, the guy wished he would have just died from all the people going, you moron, you did what? They never let him live it down. But
I will be.
It was a cloud. Yeah,
I will be really fair about this. I said I'm deathly afraid of heights. I have so much respect for these folks because, to be fair, heights are nothing compared to I don't know, Nazis and the German Imperial Air Force shooting at you. That seems like that would be a much scarier thing.
Or ground. Yeah. Or
at that
ground.
point, I might go in the swimming pool at this hotel. I don't know.
Any aircraft.
It's a
Any
lowercase
aircraft
L,
installations are bad. Yeah, those are. Yeah, dodging that is not a good. Yeah, not a good.
Yeah,
So, gentlemen,
at that point,
thank you for another wonderful episode, number 207. We are a couple of weeks away from our 5-year anniversary show.
Wow.
When is that show? What date is that actual show?
August
Do you know?
11th or something, whatever the second week of August is, will be our 5th anniversary show.
Oh,
We have 3 guest speakers that I'm organizing with. One is one story that you directed me to. Jared is. I gave him a choice of 3, not the anniversary show, but the one prior next week and 2 after. And then I have a young lady from revenue management. She built her own revenue management company. Young lady, Lily. I don't know if you know them. Know her.
I know Lily. I know Lily really well. She's great. She's fantastic.
She's very, very sharp, very talented.
Oh yeah, yeah,
and very strong in her opinions on how she manages revenue management, which is why I'm looking forward to her coming on the show.
For sure.
I don't always agree with it, which is always great to have somebody on the show that you don't agree with on everything, and she's really sharp on that. And then I have another one that I'm working with as well, trying to get something through for August. So August, we should have some good guest speakers with us as well. But thank you all very much, Mr. Tim. For those who want to know about everything on the internet and your podcast, which is always a welcome treat every week.
TimPeter.com or TimPeter.com/podcast. I am at TCPeter on Twitter, and usually Tim Peter or Tim Peter Associates everywhere else.
And Mr. Robert Cole for Rock Cheetah, sir, where they can find you.
rockcheetah.com or at Robert K. Cole. And I'll unfortunately be missing next week's show. It's
Oh no!
very, very sad. Yeah. The damn client. What can I say?
Yeah.
No. Actually, I shouldn't say it's really client. No, I'm out in actually going to the Milestone.
Oh, that's right. You're going out to
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
Always a very good conference.
And your second gig as a golf commentator with that microphone is which one are you going to become?
Well, this way, Lauren. You can see that they're lining up.
It's on the yes. Sir, for you and your podcast and everything else, and your publication.
Oh, I don't even have a copy to pimp it. Yeah, I do. Yeah, we do. So you can get this amazing travel study from fueltravel.com/study and find out great information like 87% of people visit your hotel website before making a booking anywhere. Mm-hmm. So that's really packed full. So fueltravel.com/study. You can get the podcast that Tim says so many nice things about at fueltravel.com/podcast. And Tim, thank you, because you inspired a recent episode. I don't know if you listened to it yet, but we did one on your quote from Jeff Bezos about focusing on the things that won't change. Yeah. So we did whole episode just dedicated on some of the things you should focus on that won't ever change in the hospitality industry. So that was a fun episode to do. So thank you for the inspiration for that. And if you want an ADA compliant booking engine or a mobile app that's way better than an in-room tablet, then you go to fueltravel.com because we have both of those amazing products.
The only American Dental Association approved apps.
That's right.
9 out of 10 dentists like Fuel Travel.
Our app and our booking engine will not give you cavities. So
that's
there you go.
Yeah.
And it's GMO friendly.
And Lauren, where can they find all things Lauren?
All things Lauren will be at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com for this show and all previous 206 show episode links to the archives of 5 years worth of fun content. It's at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. With that, we will be on to show number 208 next week. Robert, of course, you will still produce the list regardless of whether you're here or not, right? Right? No?
I'll try. All
right, no, that'll be fine. I hope you get to enjoy your time away and say hi to Anil and Banu and everybody else out at Milestone, Tammy, and all the rest. But until next week, 11:30 Friday, thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.